Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. We are here in the City of London in trendy Shoreditch at the Internet of Insurance event, and I'm talking with Gayle MacFarlane, who is a partner with Cordery, which is a compliance lawyer practice. Sounds dangerous. Gayle, great to meet you.
And you.
We're here at this event which is about the Internet of Things and the insurance industry. Interesting in that IoT, although it's top of the pops at the moment and the buzz phrase of the year, it's quite old in many ways. A lot of things, especially telematics, these sort of technologies are quite old. New ones are coming along, but we're being applied to an insurance which is very old, 300-400 years old, and which is, by its very nature being insurance, has always been risk averse, conservative and very slow moving. But now the players are being forced to move rather more quickly than many of them want to, or expected or intended to. And I'd like to begin by asking you, as a lawyer, and taking a look at it from the legal point of view, what do you think the insurance industry is making of these changes, and are they coping with it particularly well?
I think one of the key issues for me is issues around the amount of data that the insurance industry has available to it and is starting to collect. And although that's nothing new, risk has always been a part of collecting data, analysing that data, making decisions on a pooled basis. What the Internet of Things enables the insurance industry to do is to make much more individualised decisions about individuals, about their risk and about their profiles. But that raises all sorts of additional issues for those individuals, and in particular with regard to how they understand that their information is being used. There is a real risk that we could have individuals that are priced out of the ability to obtain insurance as a result of their personalised risk profiles, and we get rid of that advantage then of having the pooled risk that you may have otherwise had. So it becomes a much more nuanced ability to profile people, and that's a real concern for people like me who are involved in the privacy landscape, to look at, to make sure that people understand what they are getting themselves into when they use some of the technologies that are available today, and more to the point that will be available in the future, to reduce their premium by gathering this additional data.
Very interesting, because obviously there are two sides to the equation as usual. There's the industry and the insurance companies, and I've been talking to people today who are saying, the way things are going, it's quite likely there'll be consolidation in the industry, because a lot of new companies are coming up through the internet and through broadband that can do things that the established companies can't or don't want to do, and will provide different products and services and alternatives in one way. Then of course on the other hand there's the actual individual who's paying the premium. You're involved with both sides?
Well, so we primarily advise organisations who are looking to manage their risk profile in the compliance world, in a more heavily regulated world that we end up with. So we are looking at it from the corporate organisation's perspective, but we have to bear that in mind, that there is a change in the political landscape and the individual consumer landscape with regard to their understanding of how big data works, how their data is being used. And we've seen a big change in regulation at a European level, which focuses much more on individuals' consent and in ensuring that individuals are sufficiently informed of how their data is going to be processed before they can make decisions about whether or not they're happy for organisations to do that. So our involvement really is with helping companies who are looking to go into these technologies to say, well, where does that line lie? I always say, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. And there is a spectrum there that different businesses take different decisions that they want to approach. So it's about making sure they understand the risk with regard to that particular activity and the data that they're collecting and that they want to use.
This brings in issues, of course, of transparency. All industries have for a very long time collected data but weren't aware of what the value there was in it. No. Only very recently have people become aware of the notion of big data and how you can mine it. But a lot of organisations around the world in different vertical industries don't want to really let everyone know what they've got. It's a crown jewels, we're going to keep it, we can make money from it. That's one side of things again, and the other side, of course, is exactly what you've just said is you could be collecting data on people who have nothing to do with the person who's going to be insured or whatever, but that data will remain there. How do you know that that data is being held properly and used properly?
So this is a really big challenge, and obviously that depends on the types of technologies that you're using. But for example, telematics. How do you know who's driving the car at any given time? This is an important element to looking at that. We've seen it really already in the context of pool cars, or corporate at a corporate level, and there's been a much bigger uptake in relation to that, where it perhaps doesn't matter so much who the particular individual is. But because at a consumer level of insurance, we're looking at individual drivers. I think this could lead to problems with consent, because drivers who may not be aware that this information is being collected, your insured has given consent, they understand what you're collecting, but other insured drivers or other drivers who are able to drive under third-party cover that they have elsewhere may not be aware that their activity is being covered. So we have that kind of issue, but we also have an issue around liability, because what happens if you've collected data about somebody else and you apply it to the policy of that individual? And I think that issue around liability is a big issue just generally. The more data we are collecting, the more important it is that that data is accurate. And as soon as the processing of any data could have a detriment on an individual, a higher insurance premium, or even withdrawal of cover in certain circumstances, then the onus on the insurance company to ensure that the data is accurate is hugely increased. So every time there's a potential detriment to an individual, we need to really be sure that what we're doing is right in the first place. And that's going to be a really big challenge, because the standards haven't been so high up till now. As you said, we've collected a lot of data and we have risk profiles for huge swathes of the population, but they are on a generalised basis.
Indeed, anonymised and generalised, yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's the infamous computer says no syndrome on one side, and there's also the fact that when you get through to someone, you don't know really who they are, or what position they have within the company, and they could well be working to a script, as many do, and so on. You can see down the line coming, if this doesn't work properly, and there isn't the consent, and the privacy isn't what it should be, the security isn't what it should be, you can see some mightiest court cases which coming at the insurance companies, because they could find themselves in a difficult position.
Yeah, it's something that really needs to be considered carefully, and the legislation that we have that's coming in to new European legislation in a couple of years' time has a concept of something called privacy by design and privacy by default. So those are two key components that the industry needs to consider when they're developing these new products, and I think that's going to be really important. But interestingly, it's not just potential court cases. One of the burdens that could fall on insurance companies is this concept of something called a data subject access request. All of us, every individual, is entitled to say to any organisation, tell me what data you hold about me. Now for insurance companies, that's a lot of data, or it will be, particularly when any of these products are engaged. And they're not allowed to charge any money for that. It's not something you can charge an administration fee. There's no detriment under the new regulation. At the moment you can charge £10, which isn't that much, but at least it provides some kind of quality control, I suppose, on requests made. But it is going to be a burden on organisations. So again, all of these processes need to build that in to make sure that that's something that can be dealt with quickly and easily, because they've only got 30 days to respond under the new regulations as well. It's not a long period of time.
So it's not just a matter of the potential of a class action or an individual court case saying you have done this with my data and information on me and I'm taking you to court, but it also could be the fact that it could put enormous strain on the organisation, because you have DDoS attacks on networks. If you have something similar where thousands of people say, I want this data within 30 days, it's going to hit them hard.
Definitely, and they'll want other data around their information as well. Who else are you giving it to? Who are you sharing it with? How is it being processed? What security have you got in place? If you've got some really sensitive information about me and my personal health circumstances in particular, how are you making sure that nobody else has got access to that information? How are you protecting me when I give you my business? And that's going to be really important going forward.
We're out of time, but that's absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.